got my baby!
In 1980, a cry echoed from the Australian desert and shook the world. A dingo's got my baby. The case of Azaria Chamberlain became a cultural firestorm. It forced Australia to confront a terrifying question: was its iconic wild dog actually a child killer? But it quickly became more than that. It became a trial of a woman, a mother, against a backdrop of media frenzy and flawed forensic science. The full story is a labyrinth of injustice, a case file we promise to open another time.
And we really have to open it, Bruce, because the stories I've heard about what actually happened in that courtroom are chilling.
But the echo of that cry never faded. And 21 years later, in another Australian paradise, the same terrifying question would be answered, this time with brutal certainty. In 2001, on Kangaroo Island, 9-year-old Clinton Gage was killed by dingoes near his family's campsite. The subsequent investigation would reveal a tragic detail. The dingoes in that area had been habituated for months by tourists feeding them, causing them to lose their natural fear of humans.
It's heartbreaking. So the fear was real all along, but the tragedy was, in a way, created by us.
And that, Damo, is where the true mystery begins. Because the answer to why isn't just in our behavior, but in the animal's biology. The science has now proven it's not a dog. It's an ancient, unique lineage with a brain 25% larger than a domestic dog's and the flexible, predatory instincts of a wolf. And that single fact is the key to a 200-year war Australia has been fighting against itself.
Not a dog. So what have we been fighting all this time?
The reaction to the fear, personified by cases like Azaria's and Clinton's, wasn't just to call a few animals. It was monumental. It was this: the dingo fence. Over 5,600 kilometers of wire, one of the longest man-made structures on the planet, built to separate the order of agriculture from the chaos of the wild. This total war against a native apex predator, the government bounties, the media painting it as a villain, labeling it a pest to justify its eradication. Damo, does that sound familiar?
The Thylacine. My God, it's the exact same playbook. We've been here before. We declared an animal the enemy, hunted it to extinction for profit and fear, and the only thing we have left are grainy photos and a ghost of regret.
And here's the final irony, Damo. Some scientists believe that the arrival of the dingo on the mainland thousands of years ago was one of the factors that accelerated the extinction of the thylacine from continental Australia, one predator replacing another.
Wow. So the story's even more complicated. Are we making the same mistake twice? I need to know what you legends think. Is this history repeating itself? Chuck it in the comments.
The mistake, Damo, might be even bigger this time, because scientists have discovered the devastating irony of this modern war. Where the dingo is removed, the ecosystem collapses. It's a phenomenon called mesopredator release. Without the dingo to keep them in check, invasive species like foxes and feral cats explode in number, wiping out entire populations of smaller native marsupials like the bilby and the bandicoot. The land itself suffers, leading to soil erosion. The devastating truth is, the monster we were fighting was actually the guardian. It's a truth that modern science, led by researchers like Dr. Brad Purcell, is now racing to understand, trying to repair the damage.
So science tells us we made a monumental mistake, but we're still stuck in the same loop, fighting the same battles on the ground. It feels like we're missing a piece of the puzzle.
But perhaps that piece of the puzzle wasn't in a laboratory. Perhaps it was in the wisdom the Australian colonists chose to ignore for centuries. While Western science saw a problem or a resource, the First Nations peoples saw something else entirely. For them, the answer to Dano's question, what is it, was always clear. A quote from indigenous tradition sums up this profound wisdom. The dingo is family, origin, and guardian of our people.
Family, guardian. That was the answer all along. They weren't just living with them, they understood their role in the grand scheme of things, and we just didn't listen. It makes you wonder what else we've ignored.
And even with this profound knowledge, the paradox continues. The core conflict is that the dingoes are losing their natural fear of humans, largely due to tourists illegally feeding and interacting with them. So today, on the same island where Clinton Gage died, authorities are using a controversial solution, fitting problem dingoes with shock collars to try and reinstill that fear.
So even after everything, the science, the history, the wisdom, the war isn't over. The big question is, will we ever learn the lesson?
The ghost of the thylacine haunts Australia's history, a constant reminder of an extinction we caused. But what if that extinction itself was a lie? What if the evidence suggests the final chapter of that story was never written?